Hello there. Just some quick thoughts off myself. Read a piece earlier off Graham Souness, who, if you've seen the earlier video from the first week we were in existence regarding Souness and Holt, two fantastic journalists. I rate Souness. I like him as a pundit. I like to read him in the press. I liked him on radio. I liked him in TV. But he's talking about Man City, about how they are up there with the great United teams, the great Arsenal teams, and what have you. And yeah, I think they're in that ballpark, I really do. But I think we're bumming them up just a little too much. I think they've got some great players. I think they've got a great squad. And it's undeniable that they've got an out-of-this-world manager. I mean, the guy is brilliant. He's just a serial winner. There's no doubt about that. They've also got a lot of money. My team had it. Chelsea had it. Arsenal have had it to an extent. But they've got potloads. It's like limitless. And I think they're bending a few rules to pump even more in there, but that's obviously being investigated at the moment, or has been investigated. But all I will say to what Graham mentioned there, he says they've got brilliant players throughout the team. They have brilliant squad. They can replace almost anybody for almost anybody. I agree with that. I think he said the only people on the field that can't be replaced from the bench will be Haaland, De Bruyne, and the goalkeeper. Yeah, I probably also agree with that. But all I would say is when you look at real greatness, you look at players at the top of the game, but that are really, really brilliant. Absolutely out of this world players. Players that you just don't want to lose. You don't want them transferred away. You don't want them going elsewhere. You don't want them retiring. You don't want them getting crocked. And I think the great United teams and the great Arsenal teams had them in abundance. What I look at is, when I look at City, is how many of those City players would get in the greatest Man United team of the last 30, 40 years, and how many would get in the Arsenal team. And I would suggest very few. I think Haaland would be nailed on for either of those teams, even if you had to move somebody out of the position to accommodate him, and De Bruyne would get in any of those teams. They're two definites. I don't see anybody else at City that will get in either of those greatest 11s. I really, really don't. I honestly believe at this moment in time, when United were at the best, they had adversaries that were on the running more than they are at this moment in time. I think City at the time have got it easier than they should have. I think that the pack are letting them off massively for all they're a brilliant team. I think United, when they're at the best, had a real adversary in Arsenal, and then for a time with Chelsea. I think Arsenal also had it with ourselves, and then maybe with Chelsea. City at the best over the last few years had Liverpool for a year or two. Was it 3? That may have been it. But I think in the main over the last few years they've not had anybody that's really, really charging at them. And I don't think they've had it this year. For all Arsenal have done really well and been out in front, you sort of always knew Arsenal would crumble. Because, as I said the other night, it's what Arsenal do. It's a trait within Arsenal that Tottenham also have. At the best under Wenger they didn't. But over the last few years, they've flattered to deceive on a regular basis. Yes, they've done better this year. They really have done. But the rest have been woeful. You know, my team United are getting better. We've got a manager at long last that is going to be able to do the job and is going to be a great success for years to come. But we're still in transition. We are coming out the other side, but you can't rely on us 100%, as the blowouts that we've had this year go to show. And the draw from the jaws of victory the other night, Sean, as in us relaxing and so on and so forth. But Liverpool have been shocking this year. You know, Liverpool, compared to where they were only a year or so ago, I mean, you've got to ask yourself what's happened. It's been poor. It really has been poor. And as for Chelsea have been absolutely dire. I mean, dire. So I would suggest, other than a resurgent Arsenal, City haven't really been challenged this year. They haven't. And most people always thought they would catch Arsenal and then pass them. And that is what I would imagine is going to happen in the coming weeks. They may win it even reasonably easy in the end. Arsenal may just crumble. But I would suggest it still isn't the time yet to put City up there with the best. And even should they win the treble this year, I still wouldn't say that. And the reason I wouldn't is the Barcelona aren't the Barcelona of old. Juventus aren't the Juventus of old. Real Madrid have won it still over the last few years. They've won it a few times, but they're not the Real Madrid of 3, 4 and 5 years ago. Yet you wouldn't be surprised if Real Madrid knocked them out. you wouldn't, because they tend to do that. But they're not the dominant team that they were. They're not as dominant as they were. And PSG, it's all superstars and no substance. So I wouldn't yet be sort of saying City are right up top. And I know many would disagree with me, especially City fans. But I think they've had a relatively easy run at it this year. I really do. They've not been at their best in some games. They've had a few defeats where they shouldn't have gotten beat. And they've had a few horrendous draws where you just didn't see it coming. They weren't doing those kind of things in past years. But they've been able to do them this year because the pack hasn't been good enough. And the main ones I aimed at would be Liverpool and Chelsea. United were always behind in chasing. Arsenal have done better than we expected. But as I say, Liverpool and Chelsea, very, very poor this year. Very poor. And Tottenham. Three teams that have really, really gone backwards this year. So anyway, that's the thoughts from me. I might be wrong, but for me, Haaland and De Bruyne are getting any of the best teams. I'm not sure anybody else does. I'm really not. Your thoughts below. If you agree, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. Comments below. Below to get some comments. And that's basically it. Okay,